Okay, so this is really kind of screwed. So let's do it. Can we all just, if you're that side of the screens, just stand up. There's loads of space here because I've got a couple of bits of video to show. And when the sun comes out, it's really difficult to see. So if you just come a bit closer. And what we actually have here is not a problem. It's an opportunity to come and meet some other people. Come on, don't hang at the back there. Come, there's loads of fun going on down here. That's it. Just move a little bit closer. Okay. No problem. All right, well, and we'll manage one way or another. We'll kind of do it in Braille, and I'll describe what's on the screen. Thanks. Okay, can you? So you can hear me? Okay. Thanks very much for doing that, and apologies for the glitch there. So my name's Derek Scuffell. I'm just going to talk about some stuff that I've done, trying to do one project, and I've kind of deviated off and found one or two other interesting things that have gone on around my house. Just to give you I just want to kind of set the scene here. I know no electronics, and I know no electronics because I'm a biologist, really. So I do agricultural physiology and crop protection, and the bottom left picture here on the screen is kind of corn growing in polytunnels that we check, and I work with a lot of data to do with experiments that come out of that. So I don't really do electronics by any means. And the other thing that is relevant to this that I've recently been doing is I've been doing some welding. And on the bottom right there, again, I'll have to kind of describe it to you, but it's this is 3 bottles of beer which I gave to my neighbour's son when he reached 18 years old. But I welded them all into a steel case. So the only way he could get into it was to actually take an angle grinder or a hacksaw to it if he actually wanted to drink a beer. Yes, or break the bottle. And it's teasingly made to look as if you can just take the bottle out, but actually when you try, you find out you can't do it. So so my background is I don't really know anything about electronics, and I just became very interested in the Raspberry Pi actually when my son got one for Christmas. He'd asked for one for Christmas. My son's quite old actually, he's 23. And I thought it was very interesting, but Ebon Upton's background and understanding of why we actually needed the Raspberry Pi really resonated with me. I'm definitely from the generation that couldn't afford a BBC Micro, but did use one, used friends' ones, and I did a lot of programming and bits and pieces with that. And I think that I totally understand his statements about, or understanding that the number of potential graduates who are applying for courses who actually have an understanding of computer science has declined in the UK, and that has been a real shame. And that's not necessarily going to set us well for the future. It's not really things that are going to build our computer science capabilities in the UK. And with national curriculums being full of Excel, how to do PowerPoint presentations and how to do Excel is not really the thing that's going to push forward the frontiers for us. So I think the Raspberry Pi is just a brilliant phenomena that's come about, and I never cease to be amazed by these projects. Everyone knows this one with Babbage the bear. Sorry, I better describe the picture because you won't be able to see it. The sun's come out, but I'm talking about Babbage the bear, the project to recreate Felix Baumgarten's jump from outer space, but using a teddy bear and a Raspberry Pi. Total budget £300, whereas the NASA budget for Felix Baumgarten's budget was 30 million. But it's just we'll write on one for the open source crowd to actually do that. And the school projects that you see for the Raspberry Pi I think are amazing as well. It's just really great ideas that they come up with: cat feeders, pill dispensers, lap timers, sports equipment, all powered by Raspberry Pi projects. So I found that really interesting, and I tend to try and find little things that I can do around the house. And one of the things, again, I'm going to have to describe, I can't believe the sun's come out. It's been cloudy all week. So I'll describe this to you. On the right-hand side here, in this blank piece of screen, is a pile of builders' debris which has been dumped on a byway near where I live. And a friend of mine is the estate manager for a number of farms around here. And this fly tipping that occurs is a real pain. It's a real pain to him because he's the landowner and has to clear all this up. And it's a real pain, obviously, to the environment. There's poisons and toxins that are in there. In some cases, there's asbestos that's left behind. And in those particular cases, the local authority have to come along and clear it up. But the landowner is the one who is mostly responsible for doing that, and it's a real pain. And this happens, as soon as spring comes, people do house clean-outs, builders become a lot more active, and this occurs an awful lot, and it's a real nuisance. This is a kind of a pub conversation that often happens with me on a Friday night, talking to friends, and say, well, couldn't we do a Raspberry Pi project to see if we could detect the presence of fly tippers, or perhaps capture an image, or see if we could recognize them in some way. Our unitary authority, where I come from, what their response to this is that they will rummage through the debris, and if they can find a piece of paper or some way of identifying the culprit, then the most they will do is write them a letter and say, we think you've dropped something, would you like to come and pick it up? My friend, who's the local estate manager, is now part of a national farm awareness group, which has a local meeting that's now chaired by a cantankerous police official who's fairly near to retirement, and he's of the opinion, if you can just find me any way of identifying who these people are, I'll actually just go and arrest them, which will be a lot more effective than writing them a letter. So with that as background, we think, well, could we do a Pi project that would help us try and identify who these fly tippers are? Now, I'm just going to set expectations now. By the end of this talk, I'm not going to have identified any fly tippers, because this talk is actually how I got slightly distracted from this project, doing other things. So, but, watch this space. And it is actually a little bit of a plea, because I have hit a couple of technical difficulties. And if there's anyone who knows anyone who can help me, it would be really helpful. So first off, we figured that if we want to, I say we, I think it's me, and it's anyone who's listening to me at the time in our house or the pub. If we want to detect the presence of someone, can we just use ordinary PIR detectors connected to the Pi? On the left-hand side here, I've got a picture of these standard PIR detectors you'd have as in burglar alarms. So if you've got a burglar alarm in your house, these are the ones they fit in each room. Now, I managed to get hold of 8 of these off a free cycle. I'm just doing my usual scour of free cycle looking for stuff to fill my garage with, and I noticed somebody said they were moving house and they had 8 of these. So I just grabbed them. I went round, picked them up, and I had no idea what I was going to use them for, but like many things, I just happened to have it kind of lying around when it became useful. So I had some of these, and I thought, well, this is good. I'll see if I can just kind of hook this up to the Pi and detect movement. Now, the way they actually work is you have to give them a 12-volt power supply, and I assume that's because burglar alarm systems all run off a 12-volt battery. So you have to feed it a 12-volt supply, and then there's an open circuit which you can just detect the presence of, sorry, a closed circuit which you can detect the presence, the opening of on the Pi using the GPIO port. So I don't program a lot, so it's just kind of small little Python scripts I'm doing to test this. So I kind of rigged this up. What I did was I ripped the cupboard off of one of our study cupboards. Now, my wife is very patient with me, but it gave me a big enough board to pull all the pieces out on. So I screwed all the pieces down like this, and I connected these sensors up to some Cat5 cable and some Ethernet ports, so I could just plug them in and run them out. And that kind of worked, and so I thought what I really wanted to do was test it in a real situation. And this was about, I guess this must have been at the beginning of October last year. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll see if I can detect the presence of children at Halloween coming around our house, because Halloween's not like it used to be, is it? There's a lot more activity now. So I thought, well, this would be really good. I can just see if I can detect kids and, I don't know, put a bit of sound out or something. So, so this was distraction number 1. So what I actually did, I'll just describe this to you again. So I happened to have 2 strobe lights, which I'd picked up from somewhere some years ago. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be good if I could kind of turn those on with a bit of thunder as the kids come down the drive, you see. So So of course that means switching on 240 volts. And again, I know no electronics, right? But I do know you need a kind of a 240 volt relay. So on the bottom left there, I had to build a 240 volt relay, which, and I don't know if the way these work, to switch 240 volts, there's a coil which I have to activate, but I couldn't find one with a low enough voltage for the Pi to work. I could only find a 5-volt one. So I had to buy another expansion board called the Pi, a Bi, so I purchased this time, buy an expansion board with which I could switch 5 volts with, and then I could switch the 12 volts that was needed for the base relay for this. So I was switching one relay to switch another relay to turn on the 240 volts for the strobe. So then I thought, well, actually, I could do more than just turn on the strobe, wouldn't I? I happened to have a papier-mâché head that my daughter and I made many years ago with an eyeball hanging out, and so my daughter did a textiles project once at school and had one of these tailor's mannequins, you know, so you put a dress on. So I thought I'll have that. I'll put the papier-mâché on the head, and then I built this box it's kind of a small TARDIS-sized box here. So I just built a wooden frame, and then I lined it with black cloth, and then I put a nylon gauze, a black nylon gauze on the front, and put the mannequin inside, strobes inside. So it's dark when the kids come along, you know, they can't see anything. They finally get to the door, the lightning comes on, and they see this body inside the box. So that's the idea, okay? So that's sensor number 2. And the sensor number 1 just detects them coming down the drive and puts out a scream. So that's actually what I was doing. On the right-hand side here, again, you can't see this very well in this light. You can just see the papier-mâché head. But I have got a video here, which we're hoping the sound will work on. So I'll just say what to look for with the light levels. So the first thing is there's first PR sensor is going to go off. There should be a couple of screams to hopefully scare them. And then if they make it to the door, somewhere around about here, you should see the strobes cut in and the box be illuminated. So let's see what happens. Okay, so that worked. I'll tell you what was really rewarding about that. We had 2 lots that ran back up the drive. It was, and they were, yeah, really upset, some of them. Anyway, you know, I don't want to be held to ransom by trick-or-treaters. Right, okay, so that was number 1 thing. So that was, can we detect presence, and that worked. And, you know, we're still a long way from fly tip cam at this point. So the next thing was, can we, I'll just see if that's, can we get an image perhaps? And I wanted to try using the Pi cam. Now, when I actually started thinking about this, I think the Pi cam had just been announced. So this is the 5 megapixel camera board for the Raspberry Pi. So when that first came out, it was just a standard camera. And the thing was that we figured most fly tippers will do stuff at night. So what we really need is infrared. And the problem with that is, well, at that time, there was obviously a big demand for this, for infrared Pi cams, because there was a kind of a meme on the internet of people who were taking the filters off and turning them into infrared cameras, because it just has a blue filter over the front. So so I started looking at it, but it looked like the general success rate was about 30%. So mostly they just knackered the cameras. So, you know, 1 out of every 3. So I wasn't really up for doing that because I only had 1. And again, this was another purchase. So you know, generally I try and get stuff for free, but you know, if I can, I try and avoid purchasing it. So, but anyway, it turns out that there was such a demand for this that the infrared Pi cam came out, and you can buy the blackboard, which is the one on the bottom left there. To just put straight into your Raspberry Pi. So I'm getting quite excited at this point because we may get visual, you know. So I connected it all up. Now the software you use for this, if you've done any webcam work with the Pi, the software most people are using is Motion. It's open source. There's a really good one called Zone Minder, which is a lot heavier duty, and you can kind of describe parts of your image and get Zone Minder to just monitor changes in those parts. You can do that to an extent with Motion, but Motion's pretty good. It's quite lightweight. You can get up and running, and you can detect various things happening with it. So now there is a version of Motion that's been that somebody's knocked up for the Pi cam. So I had to download that. It's a fork. I'm guessing they'll remerge later. But I downloaded that, got that going, and that looks pretty. That was working quite well. So now I'm thinking I need something to detect motion, and that's really where we get to the subject of the talk. And that is that I thought I would. Oh no, sorry, there's one other bit before that. That's right, yeah. Again, rubbish. I'll describe what's here. So if I'm going to put this outside to catch fly tippers, it has to be weatherproof. It has to have night vision. Obviously, we're going to get that for the infrared camera. You need to have data access, and it needs to be secure. I don't want people kind of picking it up and walking off with it. So this is where the welding comes in. So I made this. So this is a standard army ammunition box. You can get these from army surplus stores or on the web. They're about kind of £6 to £10 depending on what size you get. So I thought I'll put the Pi and the camera inside this. You drill a hole in the front. Use my wife actually does stained glass making. She's really good at cutting glass. So I got her to cut this piece for the front here. So she contributed to the project as well. So I bought this matrix, this infrared matrix here to illuminate the area. So the camera comes through the hole here at the front, and you can access it all via the back. They're very secure. Okay, so all the bits and pieces will sit in the back here like this. Now, so here's a top tip, by the way. These are really good, these boxes. We use them for geocaching. If you're doing geocaching, you put geocaches in them. But they're airtight, really water resistant. So if you're welding something onto one of these and you have it closed, what you've got is a very highly contained piece of air, which you're then going to heat to 1500 degrees C. And if you haven't got your visor on, what you get is a globule of, either way you get this, you get a globule of steel that comes firing out at your face at a very, very fast rate of knots. So if you're welding them, keep the door open, because I learned that the hard way. Anyway, so that's it. That's pretty, that's all good chunky stuff. And I've built some brackets to put it onto a tree. So I figured that now that I've got my waterproof device, I wanted to just test this. And my best option, I thought, for testing was to do an alpha test on our cat flap. So, by the way, on the left-hand side there on that picture, there's 2 solar panels. Now, by now, I've started buying stuff, and this project is going up in price, and I'm really worried my wife isn't going to be very happy about this. But the solar panels was a breakthrough, because I realized on Amazon, you can just send the stuff to a different address and pick it up later, so she doesn't see the stuff coming into the house. So that, it's a breakthrough moment, that was. So we've got this solar-powered. I've got a alarm battery in the bottom of the camera there, powered off solar powers. That's actually, by the way, this is one of my power management is the thing that's worrying me at the moment. Anyway, I've got a cat flap tested. On the right hand side you can see the bottom of our wheelie bin and just see the bottom edge of our cat flap, which is where I place the camera and I figured I'll just see our cats coming in and out of the cat flap. These are our cats. They're Bebop and Blues. They're 2 black cats. So my objective is it'll be quite interesting to see what Bebop and Blues are doing through the night and see whether I'm actually detecting it. Bebop is the one on the right with the dodgy eye, and he's the boy, and the one on the left is Blues, the girl. They're brother and sister. That's enough about my cats. Right, so right, I've got a video here. So you might have to squint to look at it. So I was really surprised. First off, I ended up with this. I didn't see any motion from our cats whatsoever, but this one arrived. We've called Longtail, suspect number 1, who arrives at the step. You can see has a sniff around. Now, it's interesting because 2 days after this, I was past a field that was outside of our village, and I saw this cat. It must roam an awful long way. I mean, it was easily half a kilometre away, and this self-same cat was there. But anyway, so he didn't go in. He just had a sniff around, as you can see, and then he walked away for a bit. Okay, so that's longtail, number one. Let me just move on to... Right, so the next one is this one here. On the left... oh, hang on. Oh, let's stop that. Rewind that. Let me just give you the rundown here. Hold on. Ugh. Right. So this one here, on the left there, this is a separate, different cat, a short tail. We called him Stumpy, codename Stumpy. And you can see he actually goes up and into the... He actually enters into the house. And looking at the timestamps, again, motion timestamps all these images. But the way motion works, by the way, is it takes a JPEG and then another JPEG, and it compares the two. And if there's a difference, then it starts laying down JPEGs. So all these videos are just JPEGs that have been strung together. But a few seconds later, he exits on the right-hand side, being followed by Bebop, which you can just see there, who comes out. So he only stays in for a few seconds, and then Bebop, I think, just moves off and sees him off the premises completely. We always knew he was useful, that cat. Right, so that's... So I've now found out I've got two different cats coming into the house. And I just couldn't believe this. You know, it's just, how many of these cats in the neighbourhood are we feeding? So next day... we get this one on the left-hand side. Okay, I'll describe this to you. If only these screens are working, right? So on the left-hand side, I have another cat, as a ginger cat, codenamed Ginge, who actually enters the house. And in that video, he has just entered the cat flap. But now, what's interesting is that he stays in there for 3 minutes. And he exits 3 minutes later. We don't know why. There's no Bebop. So on the right-hand side, he's just exiting here. But it's 3 minutes. And I thought, oh, blimey. So what's he doing for 3 minutes? Well, he's probably eating the food, isn't he? So this then gave us an idea for another project, which this is a work in progress. And let me just describe this to you again, because the screen's not brilliant. So top left-hand side, I have a cat flap. That has RFID detection on it. Now, those chips that cats have in their necks, there's a standard for that, and it's a 4 centimetre field distance that you can read. And I'm figuring that we could have the cat flap able to read that. I don't mind about they can come in. It doesn't matter. The cats can come in. I just want to know who the cat is. And on the bottom left, there is actually, I've got a description there of a web service you can go to, send the chip ID, and it'll give you the contact details for the owner. Okay? Now, so I'm figuring the cat comes at top left, the cat comes in the cat flap, Raspberry Pi reads it, it goes out to the web service, it comes back with the contact details. Then, at the middle, at the bottom there, you'll see that the cat that's entered the house is then imprisoned. Okay, so we've now got the perpetrator in the house. We know who it belongs to, okay, and we've got evidence they've entered the house. Now the top right, we've got the cat food on a lab balance, interface to the Pi. So for that period of time, we know how much food that cat has eaten. And what we then do is we auto-generate the invoice for the Meow Mix, which goes straight to the owner. And of course, as soon as it's paid, they can have their cat back. So that's thank you. So that's a work in progress. If anyone wants to help me with that one, let's just get in contact. Okay, so right, so I've kind of summarized where I am, right? You know, I'm able to detect motion. I'm able to detect all the neighbors' cats. This is where we are with FlyTip Cam right now. On the left-hand side, I have the location where FlyTip was supposed to be mounted 2 weeks ago. It wasn't mounted because I have a power management problem, which I will describe to you. I don't have any pictures of, but it goes like this. I had a burglar alarm battery in the base of the module, and I had solar power batteries, and I took out the battery and the solar panels to scout camp. So I'm chairman of a local scout group. I go and help out at our scout camp every year. We thought it would be really cool to take the battery and the solar panels to scout camp so that all the scout leaders and maybe some of the kids could recharge their phones. One guy came along, as soon as I put a load on the battery, no, this battery, by the way, was inside one of these ammunition boxes. As soon as I put a load on the battery, there was a lot of kind of flickering of LEDs, and the battery started expanding like this. Now, we often have accidents on scout camp, and we have to put them all in the first aid book, but we've never had sulfuric acid burns. So I immediately just closed the lid and threw away the battery. So, thank you. I have to do something about power management. And basically, this is the last bit that I need to put in place. I really need to kind of get my head around what needs to be done in order to keep the thing topped up with power, so I don't have to keep going back and revisiting it. One other thing I did mention was that I needed to have secure data access, and we also have there's a Wi-Fi dongle here for accessing it, and so it's called Flytip Cam is the network, and the password, if ever you're there, is get off my land. So this is that's my presentation. I just have this one slide here, which is a picture of it, which you can't see, but it's basically a plea to anybody who knows anybody who could help me with the power management on this. I would be really grateful. My Twitter ID is there on that. But with that, that's what we did for cat burglars.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Just wait for the microphone.
Yeah, yeah. That's right.
Any more questions?
Not so much a question, but there was actually a guy doing photovoltaic workshop earlier. Have you spoken to him?
Well, I think I'll try and catch up with him. Yeah, I would have done that workshop if I'd been able to. They were all kind of full by the time we got in. So yeah, I'll try and catch up with him.
Well worthwhile. I
Yeah,
think you'd get on.
Thanks.
Any more? All right, well, can everyone just give us a hand in saying thank you to Derek again?